On November 17, 1993, while Nigerians were still struggling with the fuel price increase and other controversies associated with the Interim National Government led by Ernest Shonekan, the military were planning to strike again. This time, General Sani Abacha, who was Secretary of Defense and Vice Chairman, overthrew Ernest Shonekan, then Chairman of the 82-day-old Interim National Government. According to the conspirators, this was necessary in order to save Nigeria from imminent disintegration. The coup happened quickly and in broad daylight. Hello, Hisplers. Welcome to another history video on Hispo Media. Gabriel here. If you are new here, consider subscribing and enable notifications so you don't miss any of our future updates. Thank you. In Lagos, Abuja and Kaduna, all essential military units and conspirators were put on high alert. 3 very senior officers came to Abuja from Lagos under the protection of a detachment of the National Guard led by Colonel Lawan Gwadabe. They were motivated by diverse instincts and with no consensus on what will happen thereafter. General Sani Abacha, Defense Secretary, Lieutenant General Oladipo Dia, Chief of Defense Staff, and Lieutenant General Aliyu Mohammed Gusau, Chief of Army Staff, were the officers in question. They calmly entered Shonekan's office in the presidential villa and requested that he resign. During his controversial tenure, Shonekan, the former United African Company executive, never had operational control of the armed forces. He made the wise decision not to resist, a decision that ultimately saved his life and averted any form of bloodshed. Interestingly, the army chief Aliyu Gusau was said to be a personal friend of Ernest Shonekan and had allegedly nominated him for the post back on August 25th when Babangida constituted the Interim National Government as an exit strategy. In the environment of scheme and counter-schemes preceding the November coup, Gusau was not expected to accompany the group to confront Shonekan. As a bona fide coup plotter who may have his own plans for power, Gusau was unaware that the Lagos group that backed Abacha's takeover had identified him for retirement. He allegedly heard of the original plan to confront Shonekan without him and reportedly confronted Abacha about it. Abacha and Dia then invited him along for the show, some say by some sort of subterfuge. With Shonekan's resignation letter in hand, General Sani Abacha invoked the version of the legally outdated Decree No. 61 of the 1993 as the basis for his assumption of power as the most senior minister. Less than 24 hours later, he would abrogate this same Decree No. 61 that he claimed brought him into office. Next, General Sani Abacha and Oladipo Dia called a meeting of the Interim National Government to apprise them of development and promised that they will work with them in order to find a solution to Nigeria's problem. They also met with the National Assembly and pledged collaboration. Then, they returned to Lagos to meet with the Lagos group of military officers for the usual post-coup meeting to distribute appointments and chart the course forward. Within 24 hours after removing Shonekan, Lieutenant General Gusau was baited into disagreement with his colleagues, after which he tendered his letter of retirement. As intended all along, Major General Mohammed Chris Ali replaced him as Army Chief of Staff. Lieutenant General Oladipo Dia became Chief of General Staff, while Major General Abdulsalami Abubakar became Chief of Defense Staff. Rear Admiral Alison Madueke was the Chief of Naval Staff, while Air Vice Marshal Femi John Femi remained the Chief of Air Staff, and then Alhaji Ibrahim Komasi became the Inspector General of Police. A number of decrees were issued to formalize the transition from Babangida's regime to Ernest Shonekan's Interim National Government. The Babangida government was ended by Decree No. 59 of the 1993, while the Interim National Government was established by Decree No. 61 of 1993 as well. Thus, on August 26, 1993, at about 3:30 p.m., the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mohammed Bello, swore in Ernest Shonekan as the new head of state and president of the Interim National Government in a presidential villa in Abuja. He was, however, not sworn in as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. This omission was deliberate. Interestingly, Decree number 61 of the 1993 that established the Interim National Government identified General Sani Abacha by name as the Vice President, Defense Secretary, and Senior Minister. Remember, General Ibrahim Babangida regarded General Sani Abacha as the Khalifa or successor several years earlier. The senior minister was empowered to succeed the president of the Interim National Government in the event of resignation or other untoward events. Thus, Abacha was Shonekan's designated successor, and Shonekan had no operational control of the armed forces. And of course, if you are receiving any value from this video, please smash the like button and don't forget to leave a comment below. On the political front, meanwhile, the calculations that Shonekan's appointment as head of the Interim National Government will split the Yoruba people and make it easier to consign the June 12 election to the rubbish heap of history failed. Political threats against Shonekan began as soon as he took office, and his house even had to be protected from arsonists. The governors of Oyo, Ogun, Osun, and Ondo states, for example, refused, at least in public, to recognize Shonekan as a head of states. They and other Yoruba opinion leaders also requested Yoruba-speaking elements in the Interim National Government to resign their appointments. The legality of the Interim National Government was also challenged in court. Pro-democracy rallies resumed. To douse this flame, Shonekan, who had earlier agreed as a condition of his appointments not to raise the June 12 issue and even stated on September 28 that the Interim National Government would not do so, was advised by some to establish the Mama Nasa panel to investigate the June 12. He announced this on October 1st, even as security men were arresting waves of pro-democracy supporters. 2 days later, in a storm of controversy in the press, members of the Social Democratic Party in the Interim National Government threatened to pull out, claiming that they had only accepted to serve initially because they thought they were supporting a palace coup to oust the former president Ibrahim Babangida. Meanwhile, the National Assembly was locked into an internal battle over effort to repeal the decree that annulled the June 12 election in the first place. Both Shonekan and Abiola were touring the country to raise support for their respective agendas. Abiola filed a court motion to declare the Interim National Government illegal. Shonekan was also later accused, without evidence however, of trying to bribe opposing members of the National Assembly in an attempt to gain legitimacy and expand his national support base. Between August 27th and September 17th, Abacha made more critical decisions as the effective political and operational chief of all the armed forces. He publicly announced new army postings in Lagos without recourse to Shonekan, who was ensconced at Abuja. Obviously, the lame dog service chiefs who owed him the decency of being properly retired with adequate 3-week notice and traditional pull-out ceremonies did not question his moves. By September 20th, when the new service chiefs finally took office, new officers adjudged loyal to General Abacha were occupying all the strategically sensitive commands in the army. Dangerous IBB boys were defanged, first by being posted out to politically safe locations and then subsequently kicked out of the army entirely in stages. Indeed, nearly all the officers and prominent northern traditional rulers who helped Abacha to power eventually felt his jackboots. Regarding the September posting at the Lagos Garrison Command, for example, Brigadier Ishaya Rizibamiyi took command. At the Brigade of Guards, Brigadier General Bashir S. Magashi replaced Colonel J.Y. Madaki, who was then posted to the depot in Zaria. At the 1st Infantry Division, Brigadier General M.C. Ali, erstwhile Director Military Intelligence, replaced Brigadier General John N. Shagaya as the General Officer Commanding. Shagaya was then posted to Ekomok in Liberia as Acting Major General. At the 2nd Division Headquarters in Ibadan, Brigadier General Godwin Osage Abe replaced Brigadier General John Enienga as the General Officer Commanding. At the 3rd Armored Division, Brigadier General Tajuddin Olarinwaju replaced Brigadier General Ahmed M. Daku. At the 82nd Division, Brigadier Later Major General Timothy M. Shelpidi replaced Brigadier Later Major General Chris Abutu Garuba, while Brigadier General Ahmed Aboki Abdullahi replaced Brigadier General Mohammed Chris Ali as the Director, Military Intelligence. Colonel Lawan Gwadabe had taken over from Colonel Abdulmuminin Aminu as Commander, National Guard. Lieutenant Colonel Sambo Dasuki was in the Military Secretary's office. Most amusingly, Brigadier Halilu Akilu, erstwhile powerful Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, was posted to the Oshodi Resettlement Scheme to rehabilitate disabled and retiring soldiers. The Lagos group began preparing actively for the overthrow of the Shonekan's government right from the moment he was sworn in. Nominations were accepted and votes counted at meetings of the entire caucus of an inner caucus within the outer caucus. In this manner, General Sani Abacha was elected by this self-appointed military electoral college to take over as head of state, commander-in-chief, and minister of defense. Lieutenant General Dia was voted to be his chief of general staff, beating Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau. Major General Abdul Salami Abubakar beat Major General Edward Unimna and Cyril Iweze for the position of the Chief of Defense Staff. Then, Brigadier later Major General MC Ali was told that the scenario had been set for the position of the Chief of Army Staff to fall on him. This implied that Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau Mohammed, who had been appointed to that position by the outgoing President Babangida, was to be prospectively frozen out of any top military position in the planned Abacha dispensation. Similarly, Rear Admiral Suleiman Seidu was later aged out as Chief of Naval Staff in favor of Rear Admiral Alison Madueke in a high-stake game of ethnic balancing championed by Brigadier MC Ali and Brigadier Aboki Abdullahi. On September 24th, a few days after Abacha had fully consolidated military control, Chief Moshood Abiola returned to Nigeria from Britain. A large crowd of supporters received him at the presidential wing. From the airport, his first step, even before he went home, was Defense House in Lagos, where he met secretly with General Abacha behind closed doors. A knowledgeable insider said that both Abacha and Dia encouraged Abiola to return home against Shonekan's wishes. Since both Abacha and Abiola are dead, it is hard to confirm the report that Abiola and Abacha agreed to a military takeover of the government as an interim measure before final handover to him down the road. But several witnesses confirmed that Abiola actively suggested names to General Abacha for inclusion in his first cabinet. It seems clear, however, that Abacha was taking Abiola for a ride, and Abiola fell for it. Major General MC Ali testifies that when he later asked General Abacha whether he had a path with Abiola regarding the June 12 election, Abacha's reaction was, "MC, you should know better." In early October 1993, the army became involved in internal security duties in a disagreement between Ogoni and Andoni in Rivers State. Such actions later proved highly controversial, leading to General Abacha's execution of King Sarowiwa and others. During the later week of September and the first week of October, Colonel Abubakar Dangiwa Umar, commander of the Armored Corps Center and School, began making contacts regarding a military coup aimed at removing Chief Shonekan from office and reinstating Chief Abiola. This plot was leaked when Dangiwa Umar made an attempt to recruit the new GOC of the 1st Division in Kaduna, Brigadier MC Ali. On or around October 7, 1993, Dangiwa was arrested on accusation of treasonable felony. There was an outspoken assumption that he was involved in some type of pro-Babangida conspiracy because of his close friendship with former presidents. Fortunately, he was not charged. He was released after Brigadier MC Ali made appeals to General Aliyu Gusau and Sani Abacha on his behalf. He thereafter resigned his commission. It is worth noting that Abacha was clever in opting to release Colonel Umar Dangiwa without charge. He didn't need the distraction from his main focus at that point. Also, he didn't need to irritate General Babangida unnecessarily at that point by pressurizing one of his closest boys, to face possible execution or long imprisonment. And he did not want to grant the Shonekan government unnecessary legitimacy by prosecuting an officer for conspiracy, the government he considered illegal and which he was planning to remove soon anyways. As a result, rather than dealing with the situation legally, he decided to deal with it administratively within the military. Meanwhile, Shonekan, advised by his kitchen cabinet of close associates, was beginning to act like the head of state. He attended foreign meetings, ordered inquiry into the June 12 saga, and called for investigation of corruption in the NNPC, NEPA, Nigerian Airways, Central Bank, Customs, and so on. In early November, and under these circumstances, Chief Shonekan, who was being mocked for lack of power, moved into the presidential villa from the presidential guest house. This move was against his initial understanding with Babangida and angered General Sani Abacha. Abacha was becoming concerned about Shonekan's growing confidence and irritated by security reports that he was planning something against the regime. Due to pressure from declining oil prices, Shonekan chooses to withdraw the petroleum subsidy on November 8 and raise the price of petrol from 70 kobo to 3 naira 50 kobo. This prompted street protests and plans by pressure groups to resume full-scale industrial action. 2 days later, on November 10, 1993, the Shonekan-led Interim National Government was declared illegal in a ruling at the Lagos High Court presided over by Justice Dolapo Akinshanya. The attendant consequences of the judgment dovetailed nicely into General Abacha's original skillful backdating of the effective date of Babangida's retirement to August 26, 1993. Professor Olaji Akinyemi openly pleaded with General Sani Abacha the day after the court's decision to save Nigeria from a terrible political and legal quagmire. But Abacha, who was known for his patience and discipline when it came to coups, refused to be rushed before crossing his T's and dotting his I's. After all, the Interim National Government was appealing the Akinshanyan decision to a higher court, and Abacha had to keep a close eye on his military ranks as well. There was also the issue of how to deal with Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau Mohammed, the Chief of Army Staff, who was not a man to be underestimated. The Nigerian Labour Congress, on the other hand, declared a general strike on November 15, 1993. The Senate began open hearings on the fuel price hike on November 16, 1993, while the House of Representatives asked the Interim National Government to reverse or rescind the price hike. The next day, November 17, 1993, General Sani Abacha, General Oladipo Dia, and General Aliyu Gusau arrived at the presidential villa in Abuja at about 10 a.m., accompanied by truckloads of fearsome-looking soldiers. The soldiers were under the command of two Lagos group conspirators, Colonel Lawan Gwadabe of the National Guard and Brigadier Bashir Magashi of the Brigade of Guards. Magashi was almost certainly present to ensure that Gwadabe followed only the Abacha script. Following a private meeting with Chief Ernest Shonekan, he was graciously allowed to deliver a farewell speech to the Interim National Government after 82 days of controversy, following which he was flown to Lagos. After waiting patiently for so many years, Abacha, the successor or the Khalifa, had finally struck. To know how important Abacha was to the Babangida's regime, check this video displayed here. I will see you in that video. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below. Peace.